This is about to be a long video. I'm starting to notice a trend. Whenever I plan a video or another musical, something else becomes my new obsession. And I need to make it yours too. A college friend introduced me to this musical. He knew I was a big fan of musicals, however, I was stubborn and didn't want to listen to it because it wasn't like typical musicals that I've loved. Many months later, I finally decided to give it a try. It was just as amazing as he said, and in some ways, even better. Someone else did a TikTok of this. We're already off the rails. I'm not even 2 minutes in. Someone did a similar TikTok to this, to like the sound from Gravity Falls. I'm going to put it here where they're like, I'm Stan and I was wrong. I'm singing the Stan wrong song. That was me. That was me. That musical, a retelling of Homer's The Odyssey by Jorge Rivera-Herrans, is called Epic the Musical. Hello everybody, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. Epic the Musical recently hit 1 billion streams and joins the ranks of other Greek mythology-inspired musicals, like Hadestown and The Lightning Thief. Now, while Hadestown focuses on passion and tragedy, and The Lightning Thief takes a more comedic and lighthearted approach, Epic centers on themes of survival and sacrifice, leaving its characters grappling with their choices' devastating consequences. Both Hadestown and The Lightning Thief are fantastic musicals, and I'd be happy to dive deep into either of them if you would like me to in the comment section below. Jorge, who is very active on social media, has stated that he takes creative liberties when adapting the Odyssey into his musical Epic. He has notably altered the central theme. While the Odyssey focuses on cunning and a hero's journey, Epic instead explores how ruthlessness can sometimes be necessary to protect yourself and those you love. This change in the message affects characters and storylines throughout the musical's 40 songs and shapes Odysseus' journey and those around him. Today, we are going to explore this through 7 key themes: fate, danger, ruthlessness, mercy, pride, loyalty, and love. Let's dive in. Oh, and spoiler alert, if you have not listened to Epic yet, go do that and come back here. It's about 2 hours. I will be here, waiting. Resisting fate in the face of the gods. When discussing Greek mythology, the role of fate is impossible to ignore. The Greek gods constantly intervene in the lives of mortals, often with surprising results. Even in Epic, free will, fate, and divine intervention are central themes, raising the question, do the characters in Epic control their destinies, or are they merely pawns in the face of the gods? And if their fates are predetermined, does survival depend on their ability to act ruthlessly when fate leaves them no other choice? The song Charybdis from the musical Epic highlights the powerlessness of mortals against the gods. In this song, Odysseus is stopped by Poseidon, a god who interferes with Odysseus' journey home to Ithaca. This divine intervention underscores the idea that Odysseus' fate is not his own. The presence of Charybdis, a silent monster, further emphasizes the inevitability of fate. Despite his struggles for survival, Odysseus' destiny is controlled by the gods. Poseidon's actions reinforce the idea that mortals are merely pawns in the grand scheme of the gods. Odysseus' eventual fate is foreshadowed in this scene, where he later sees his destiny. Although fate may present challenges, Odie's ability to resist and fight back is essential to his survival. This implies that free will manifests in the choices characters make when faced with divine intervention, even though the gods may influence fate. Divine intervention can be crucial for survival in Epic, as shown with the song Wouldn't You Like, where Hermes offers Odysseus a chance to fight Circe on equal terms. This illustrates that mortals who seize opportunities presented by the gods can overcome challenges and thrive. Although Hermes provides Odysseus with divine aid, the outcome of his journey still remains uncertain. The line, "You very well may die," emphasizes that divine assistance does not guarantee survival, foreshadowing the song God Games, which explores the gods' manipulation of mortals. Wouldn't You Like reveals that Odysseus' cleverness and ability to respond to divine intervention are crucial to his survival. While the gods influence events, they don't control every outcome, and Odysseus' choice ultimately determines his success. The Underworld presents Odysseus with the unavoidable consequences of his past, where survival depends not on cunning, but on accepting loss and facing the inescapability of fate. This contrasts with Hermes' intervention in Wouldn't You Like, which offered Odysseus a strategic choice and a chance to fight back. The lyric, "Your past seems close behind," emphasizes that Odysseus cannot escape the repercussions of his actions, and that mortality and fate are inescapable. While in the Underworld, Odysseus is tormented by his past, represented by fallen soldiers, his best friend, and his mother. No matter how hard he struggles, he can't outrun the consequences of his actions. Odysseus' journey is controlled by fate and not free will, which is evident in the Underworld. This makes his journey one of suffering and loss, rather than one of control. No Longer You shows fate's role by showcasing the prophet Tiresias delivering a mysterious message about Odysseus' journey back to Ithaca. The song compels Odysseus to confront the reality that he has little power over his future, unlike the Underworld, which forces him to face his past. In the story, Tiresias, who is blind, tells Odysseus that he will return home, but not as the man that he knows. Odysseus misunderstands the prophecy, assuming he won't make the journey. And in this moment, I understand what Odysseus is feeling. We have gone through all of, like he says, gone all through the troubles and the hells, and you tell us all these efforts are for nothing. And he misinterprets it like any person would into thinking that he is going to die. The irony lies both in Tiresias' blindness and Odysseus' inability to see the true meaning of the prophecy, which leads him to make choices that have negative consequences. Odysseus defies the prophecy upon the prophet's departure, choosing to forge his own destiny. He decides to become the man the prophecy foretells him he could be, not by fighting it, but by embodying it. This decision marks the start of his transformation into the monster he later claims to be in the song Monster. Although the prophecy doesn't dictate his choices, it leads him down a ruthless path. Rewinding to the second song in the musical, Just a Man shows us a version of Odysseus who is still clinging on to his humanity. Here, Odysseus must confront an unthinkable act, throwing an infant from the walls of Troy to prevent future vengeance. This internal conflict highlights Odysseus' struggle with his humanity and the monstrous actions fate demands of him. While he attempts to justify his actions as necessary to protect his family, he still pleads for the infant's forgiveness, recognizing the tragic situation that he's in. One of the biggest things I really like about Just a Man is that with him justifying all the things that are going on here, he is also saying that just like any other man would, they would also try to justify killing an infant like this, especially when having to try to show it mercy for the sake of his family. As Zeus had warned in the earliest song, The Horse and the Infant, that no matter what he does, the gods will let that infant know who he is. The initial question, when does a man become a monster, emphasizes the idea that Odysseus' transformation into a cruel being is beyond his control, regardless of his battles. Although he doesn't yet perceive himself as a monster, his act of throwing the prince off the wall signifies the first step towards that path. The repetition of the question by his crew underscores their obedience to fate's plan, foreshadowing the harsh decisions they will face in the future. While Odysseus is still fighting his fate here, Just a Man proves that his story was never one of free will. His fate was sealed the moment he set sail for war, and no amount of hesitation or regret is going to change that. In God Games, the focus shifts to Athena, who fights Odysseus' cause and pleads for divine intervention. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, views mortals with respect and believes Odysseus has earned his release. She cleverly counters the arguments of the other gods, who make very valid arguments, and see mortals as mere pawns in their divine games. Despite Athena's compelling arguments and successful rebuttals, the outcome remains uncertain, highlighting the vicious nature of the gods and the inherent unfairness of their games. Zeus's refusal to let Athena win, driven by either pride or simply just being a sore loser, or simply just her calling him out of never being faithful to Hera, leads him to lash out and smite his daughter for daring to challenge him. This act underscores the gods' disregard for fairness. Divine intervention is not something mortals earn through merit, but something the gods grant at their own discretion. Zeus's hypocrisy is evident as he suggests that Odysseus must deserve aid, despite the gods' interference in his life from the very beginning. The song shows that mortals cannot completely control their destinies. Ultimately, the gods have the power to determine who will succeed and who will fail. God Games shows that defying fate requires more than just strength. It requires adopting the same tactics as the gods. Athena's manipulation of the gods demonstrates that survival depends not on worthiness, but on the willingness to fight for one's place in the world. Epic presents a world where fate is both inescapable and constantly changing. The gods manipulate, interfere, and sometimes even set Odysseus up to fail. Yet his journey proves that while fate dictates the obstacles, survival depends on how he responds. Throughout these songs, we see that Odysseus is not fully in control, but he's not entirely powerless either. Together, these moments tell us that the difference between those who survive and those who don't isn't about strength, but the willingness to do what must be done. Jorge's reimagining of the Odyssey argues that fate may be inescapable, but mortals are not powerless. When the gods stack the odds against them, the only way forward is through sheer will, determination, and, when necessary, ruthless action. If fate is a game, survival belongs to those who dare to play it on their own terms. The descent into danger. A hero's journey, especially one in Greek mythology, is never without danger. In Epic, however, danger is not just a matter of physical survival, it's also about the moral choices that come with it. Hesitation can mean death for Odysseus and his crew, forcing them to be ruthless in danger. But when does survival demand that we abandon mercy? How does Odysseus navigate the fine line between necessary ruthlessness and reckless cruelty? Early in the musical, the song Full Speed Ahead launches us as the audience into a story filled with energy, pride, and the belief that the journey to Ithaca is a challenge that can be faced head on. The song introduces some key characters in Odysseus' crew and their goal. However, the crew immediately sings that the actual danger of their journey won't be the distance, but what lies between them and Ithaca. The crew is eager but unaware of the danger that awaits them. Odysseus shows us early in the musical how he can think quickly when asked by his second-in-command Eurylochus about how they're going to feed 600 starving men. His approach to leadership is filled with caution and logic, compared to Eurylochus, who is more willing to take risks. Odysseus still believes in control, that leadership, trust, and a solid plan are enough to bring his crew home. But this mindset is going to change as the journey to Ithaca continues. They are sailing into uncharted waters, where danger is not a shadow, but a force that they will need to face head on. Odysseus does not know how far he will have to go or what lines he'll need to cross to get home to his wife and son. However, this song makes one thing clear: danger is coming. With time, Odysseus will have to decide who gets protected and who gets left behind. Polyphemus is where things in Epic the Musical change. While Full Speed Ahead captures the confidence and hopefulness of the beginning of the journey, Polyphemus delivers the first brutal awakening for Odysseus and his crew, that some dangers are beyond reason. Odysseus and his crew enter the Cyclops' cave, killing a sheep without a second thought. However, Odysseus is skeptical, singing, "Why would the Lotus Eaters pass up on all this food, as they were the ones that led them there?" Even with that caution, he still underestimates the level of danger that they're walking into. Polyphemus is not just a physical threat. He's the embodiment of unchecked power and arrogance. His cruelty and violence escalate quickly, and the moment becomes terrifying, not just for the characters, but for the audience as well. The sickening music and monstrous voice make the scene all the more horrific, especially when paired with chilling lines like, "What gives you the right to deal a pain so deep?" and "Don't you know, the pain you sow is pain you reap?" These lines raise questions of morality, but at this moment, there's no time for philosophical answers. When Polyphemus asks Odysseus who he is after being offered fine wine, Odysseus replies that he is nobody. Here, he isn't fighting with brute strength, but using cleverness as a weapon and lies as a shield. This lie isn't cowardly, it's necessary. Odysseus and his crew quickly realize that Polyphemus can't be reasoned with. He's too powerful, too arrogant, and too cruel. The threat posed by Polyphemus isn't direct and physical, demanding a response of cunning and deception. The danger presented by the siren and suffering is more treacherous. The siren doesn't attack Odysseus directly, but by promising to end his pain. The offer to take the suffering from you isn't mercy, it's death. Here, survival doesn't require violence, but self-control. Odysseus chooses to listen to the siren's song, fully aware of the risk, but he doesn't act on it. The siren sings lies about him, claiming he has a daughter and is afraid of the water, which has always seemed odd to me, considering that he's a sailor. Still, Odysseus doesn't fall for her song. Unlike Polyphemus, who couldn't be reasoned with, the siren is a danger that can be manipulated. She doesn't attack with force, but lures her victim into abandoning their will to survive. The song answers the question, when does survival demand that we abandon mercy? Because Odysseus refuses the siren's offer of peace. Odysseus doesn't lash out, but he also doesn't surrender. He chooses to endure, extracting information rather than falling for her, and understands that not every battle is fought with swords or lies. Suffering shows that danger isn't always obvious. Sometimes it comes as a whisper or a promise, and Odysseus has learned to recognize this kind of threat and face it with a different kind of strength. The strength to suffer without surrendering. I will take the suffering from you. The progression of danger becomes even more obvious in Storm, where Odysseus faces a force he cannot manipulate or reason with. The crew questions if the overwhelming power they face is nature or divine, as there is no monster to outsmart or seduction to resist. The question only adds to their fear. How do you fight something you can't even understand? Following the loss of 13 crew members to Polyphemus, including Polites, I think it was 14. Oops. The survivors are traumatized, and now they're forced to face a storm that threatens to capsize them. Despite the chaos, Odysseus continues to lead. His quick thinking and the ability to stay composed in the face of danger stand out. He gives guidance and the ability to act rather than freeze, which becomes an act of prioritizing survival. This prioritization isn't directed towards an enemy, but against surrendering to the storm. The Full Speed Ahead reprise, where the crew tries to convince themselves they're close to Ithaca, becomes a desperate attempt to cling to hope. But the truth is clear, this is not their final fight. Even as Odysseus tries to reassure them, the reality is sinking in. It's only getting harder. Odysseus must silence fear and doubt to lead. His decisions now appear reckless to others, like Eurylochus, his second-in-command, who looks at him crazy when Odysseus says they'll need to shoot a harpoon at an island in the sky. But what seems reckless to Eurylochus is, for Odysseus, the only path forward. During storm, Odysseus faces a new kind of danger, a force beyond his control. He can't outwit the storm, he can only outlast it. And in doing so, he learns a brutal truth. Sometimes survival demands that we push reason past another day. Odysseus reaches a turning point as he faces the uncontrollable alone. Having lost his crew, by the time Dangerous begins, he is isolated and broken down. Every loss and every test has brought him to this point. He is alone, except for a divine message delivered by Hermes. Hermes doesn't comfort him. He doesn't offer reassurance. Instead, he tells him, if you want to make it home, you're going to have to be dangerous. This message is a turning point in Odysseus' journey. So far, his ruthlessness has been a reaction to other threats forced on him by circumstance, but now he must embrace it as a mindset. This is where survival demands that he abandon mercy, not towards others, but towards himself. No more hesitation, no more questioning whether his next move is heroic or noble. The world he's navigating no longer rewards compassion. It rewards precision, confidence, and sometimes coldness. While the line between action and cruelty is thin here, what keeps Odysseus on the right side of it is his purpose. He's not becoming dangerous to dominate others or seek revenge. He's doing it because, without his new mindset, he will die. Hermes tells him directly, if you're not willing to become dangerous, you will never, ever make it home. What makes Dangerous such a powerful conclusion to the danger section is how it reframes Odysseus' entire arc. The monsters, the storms, the temptations, they were never just obstacles. They were preparations. Each trial chipped away at the man who believed leadership alone would be enough and created someone willing to face the darkness ahead. Odysseus doesn't lose himself in his cruelty. He transforms when the time demands it. To reach Ithaca, he learns he must not only survive danger, but embody it. Through each of these songs, Epic the Musical explores danger not as a physical obstacle, but a force that tests Odysseus' morality, mentality, and emotionality. Odysseus' journey forces him to confront the central question: when does survival demand that we abandon mercy? Each step brings us closer to understanding what Jorge sets up as the central core theme of Epic. Odysseus walks a careful line, never losing himself to cruelty, but transforming when he must. His actions aren't driven by ego or vengeance, but by love, loyalty, and survival. Danger doesn't just shape Odysseus, it brings out who he truly is. And by choosing to become dangerous, he doesn't become less of a hero. He becomes a more honest one, a man who is willing to make impossible choices for the sake of others. Put it all on the line, be dangerous. Odysseus' path to ruthlessness. Ruthlessness is the biggest section of this analysis, and for good reason. Epic the Musical portrays ruthlessness not solely as brutality, but also as a means for survival, a form of protection, and sometimes a weapon used in the name of love. The theme we've been discussing is clearer than ever here. Sometimes, ruthlessness is necessary to protect yourself and those you love. Across these 12 songs, we'll watch as Odysseus' relationship with ruthlessness begin to evolve. In the beginning, he resists it. He tries to lead with reason and cleverness, and sometimes with mercy. But the world he's thrown into doesn't reward these traits. It rewards strength, strategy, sacrifice, and when needed, blood. From the very beginning, Epic the Musical introduces us to the cost of survival. The Horse and the Infant isn't just the opening of the Troy saga, it's the opening act of Odysseus embracing ruthlessness. The line, the blood in your hands is something you won't lose, all you can choose is whose, from Zeus tells us right away, there is no clean path forward, only sacrifice, only choices. Odysseus leads a calculated, ruthless attack on Troy, one he fully believes is necessary to protect his people and his family. He is confident in his leadership, even as he psychs up his men with calls to remember who they're fighting for. But beneath that confidence is a man still trying to cling to mercy. That's what makes the moment with the infant so important. Despite being a warrior who's killed many up until this point, Odysseus still hesitates to throw an infant off a wall. He pleads, reasons, and looks for a way out. It's just an infant, it's just a boy. What sort of imminent threat does he pose that I cannot ignore? Someone's headcanon was that, while Zeus is telling him that, it is the son of King Hector, he's going to grow up to be an avenger, he's going to kill you and Penelope and Telemachus, there'll be no one to fight for, there'll be no more Ithaca. He's doing the whole thing while he's dancing. Just if you don't end him now, you'll have no one left to say. You can say goodbye to Penelope. Say goodbye to Penelope. Say goodbye to Telemachus. If you don't kill the baby right now, they will die. And Odysseus doesn't find this funny. He's literally please, I'm pleading with you. Zeus literally is do it. Kill the infant. It's so funny. And then this ties into Thunderbringer, which we'll talk about later, where he takes pride in tormenting mortals like this. This song forces us to watch him rationalize the unjustifiable, not because he wants to, but because fate demands it. The gods have spoken. The prince will know the name Odysseus. And yet, even in this first ruthless act, there is still restraint, still guilt, still mercy. Odysseus isn't heartless. He's human. A man making impossible decisions in a world that punishes softness. He's not the monster yet, not even close. But the seed is planted. No song in this musical is bad. There's no song in this musical that I actively listen to it and would not listen to it again. One of the hardest songs for me to listen to is Survive. Not because it's bad, but because we are about to get to doing the analysis of it, where we are listening and witnessing two men dying brutally. I don't know how Jorge achieved this, but he does it in a way that it is sickening to my stomach to listen to the song. Like, I skipped the song because it is so gory and it is like you can hear the squishing of their bodies. It is so gross. While The Horse and the Infant reveals Odysseus' attempts to justify ruthlessness, Survive shatters this justification with harsh reality. Once again, he tries to rationalize sacrifice. It's just one life, clinging to the same logic he used with the infant. He believes that strategy, planning, and leadership will be enough to carry them home, that killing the Cyclops will be the end of the violence. But he's wrong. While Polyphemus attacks them, the cost is immediate and horrific. 14 soldiers, including Puppeteer, are killed in an instant. And Odysseus, a veteran of a 10-year war, is left speechless, frozen, not because he's inexperienced, but because this is the first time he's come face to face with true, unapologetic brutality. This isn't the clean, calculated ruthlessness of war. It's something more feral, more personal, more terrifying. Polyphemus mocks Odysseus, repeating his lines back to him. 600 lives I'll take, 600 lives I'll break. And while the Cyclops' rage is horrifying, it's also deeply emotional. He's not just killing to kill, he's lashing out from pain. For him, ruthlessness is grief, vengeance, and despair. Odysseus is shaken. In this moment, he realizes that ruthlessness isn't always a choice. It can be a reaction, a breaking point, and he's not ready for it yet. He still wants to believe that after everything, they can just go home. But this is only the beginning. Survive leaves Odysseus traumatized by brutality, but ruthlessness presents him with a harsh lesson that his actions weren't brutal enough. The song is a confrontation of not only Odysseus and Poseidon, but also their two very different philosophies. Poseidon is powerful and furious, not only because of his son, Polyphemus, was blinded, but because Odysseus harmed him instead of killing him. In Poseidon's eyes, that wasn't mercy. It was Odysseus being a coward. "You are the worst kind of good because you're not even great" is the coldest line in the song because it gets straight to what Poseidon is trying to tell him. Odysseus believes he's doing the right thing by sparing lives, but the consequences of these choices, like leaving the Cyclops alive but helpless, are crueler. And more importantly, they leave unfinished business that comes back with a vengeance. Poseidon, the god of the sea, makes it clear. He allowed Odysseus and his crew to travel safely, but mercy has limits. Now, 543 of Odysseus' men are drowned while screaming for the captain who cannot save them. Jorge has said that in Poseidon's mindset, ruthlessness is the most efficient way to eliminate problems before they become worse. For Poseidon, killing is kinder than leaving an enemy alive to suffer, or to retaliate. Ruthlessness is mercy, not because it's kind, but because it ends things. We also see a devastating parallel to Survive. Again, Odysseus is frozen. Again, his men scream for him, and again, he does nothing. Except this time it's worse, because this time the enemy is a god, and the consequence is a massacre. The chorus is double meaning as we hear Poseidon sing about how ruthlessness is mercy at the same time as his crew is being slaughtered. Becomes brutal irony. Only Odysseus and his ship survive. Poseidon becomes the embodiment of Jorge's theme. Sometimes ruthlessness is necessary to protect those you love. In this case, Poseidon is protecting his son, but for Odysseus, the lesson hits hard. This is the first time he's punished for mercy. From this point forward, Odysseus becomes more cautious, less trusting of fate. He begins to understand that in a world ruled by gods and monsters, mercy can be a liability. Odysseus' transformation not only continues but deepens as Done For explores a new kind of ruthlessness, one born from trauma, defense, and protection. Circe is not a villain. A witch, yes, but one who is shaped by past loss and betrayal. She turns Odysseus' men into pigs, not out of malice, but because to her and her nymphs, that is their true form. Men, once welcomed, turn dangerous. The last time we let strangers live, we faced a heavy loss. Hints at the kind of violence that changed her world, possibly sexual assault, as alluded to both in epic and in works like Madame Miller's Circe. Her ruthlessness is not evil, it's a survival mechanism. In her eyes, anyone outside her circle is a potential danger, and empathy is a weakness she cannot afford. In Odysseus, he still tries mercy, still clings to reason. He approaches Circe hesitantly, trying not to accuse, trying to understand. But his patience is tested, and where Circe won't back down, we see Odysseus harden. This time he comes prepared. With the moly gifted to him by Hermes, he finally has the strength to match her magic. But still, he doesn't kill her, and that's important. He has the upper hand, but instead of striking her down, he listens. At this point in his arc, Odysseus is starting to use ruthlessness, not yet as a weapon. It's still a tool, a last resort. He's not the man he will become by the time he returns to Ithaca. He still believes mercy and reason have value. What makes this song so powerful is that both Circe and Odysseus sing the same lines. I've got people to protect. Now you're done for. It's them both singing about their pain. They're both defending those they love. They're both willing to fight, to harm, and to be ruthless, but only when pushed. This is not a hero-villain dynamic. It's a confrontation between two wounded leaders, doing what they believe is necessary. Neither of them are wrong, but neither of them are right. And that's the lesson Odysseus is walking away from, that ruthlessness is often a matter of perspective. Circe shows him that sometimes the world breaks you into becoming someone hard, someone dangerous, and that even when you think you're in the right, you still might be done for. These encounters come together in Monster, where Odysseus finally confronts himself and everything he's done. After the prophecy in No Longer You, he begins to truly question who he's become, reflecting on the ruthless individuals he's encountered, the Cyclops, Poseidon, and Circe. Each one has shown him, in their way, that ruthlessness is a twisted form of mercy. Now, he's ready to ask himself if embracing their methods is what it truly takes to survive. This moment in the song marks Odysseus' shift from denial to confronting the harsh realities of his actions. He realizes that in his attempts to be merciful towards his enemies, he's been ruthlessly careless with the lives of his crew. He recognizes now that every loss, every soldier's death, Polites included, has been the direct result of his decisions. Whether letting Polyphemus live, provoking Poseidon's wrath, or even confronting Circe, the blood is on his hands. What if the greatest threat we find across the sea is me, he asks himself, a confession that the harm he's caused outweighs the good. As Odysseus confronts the echoes of his fallen comrades in the underworld, that he finally accepts that mercy may no longer be an option. The powerful lyric, "O ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves," directly repeats Poseidon's ruthless lesson, now fully understood. Odysseus has decided he cannot afford the softness of mercy any longer. If he truly wants to protect Penelope, Telemachus, and what remains of his crew, he must do what he previously could not, fully embrace ruthlessness. The lyric, "I'll become the monster," is the turning point of the entire musical. From this moment forward, Odysseus has changed. The man who once greeted the world with open arms now accepts that brutality towards his enemies is needed for survival. The monster he feared becoming is exactly what he chooses to be, not out of cruelty, but from necessity, to protect those he loves and honor those he's lost. Now we see the monster in action. Different Beast is where Odysseus finally proves that he's no longer the hesitant, merciful leader he once was. In previous instances, Odysseus often hesitated or toyed with danger to gain information. But now, there's no hesitation. From the first line, he confidently calls out the sirens' lies. "Let's cut their charade, you are no wife of mine. I know exactly what you are, a siren." Unlike every sailor who fell victim before, Odysseus is prepared, strategic, and ruthless. Instead of merely defending against their trap, he turns it back on them. He captures the sirens and brutally orders his crew to sever their tails, condemning them to a slow death by drowning. This isn't a tactical victory, it's psychological. Odysseus is deliberately cruel, making a public example to warn anyone who dares to cross him. He's no longer just defending himself. He's actively punishing and terrorizing his enemies with his crew, who are chanting beside him. This song flips the script. They're not suffering at the hands of monsters anymore. Instead, they're the ones inflicting the suffering. But within this chant done by the crew, there's a subtle but crucial shift in the lyrics from we to he, indicating the crew's recognition of Odysseus' transformation. They're together in this moment, but soon they realize that Odysseus' ruthlessness isn't just directed at their enemies. It includes them as well. While they believe this shift in strategy will protect everyone, Odysseus is focused solely on getting himself home to Penelope and Telemachus, no matter what the cost is. As the crew chants Odysseus at the end, they unknowingly foreshadow the true monster he'll fully become. He's now a man-made monster, shaped not just by divine cruelty, but by his own calculated decisions. Scylla herself embodies more than a monster. She serves as a reflection of Odysseus' inner darkness, mirroring the monstrous qualities he has embraced. She taunts him and Eurylochus with the chilling truth. There is no price we won't pay. We both know what it takes to survive. Throughout the song, Scylla blurs the line between herself and Odysseus, repeatedly whispering, "Deep down, you know that we are the same." Whether directed at Odysseus or Eurylochus, or both, Scylla's words cut deep. Unlike other encounters, Odysseus doesn't attempt to hide his cruelty here. Instead, he embraces it. He knowingly leads his men to their death without warning them, sealing their fate. This isn't the Odysseus who begged for an infant's life at Troy. This is a leader who can coldly sacrifice his own crew without flinching. When Eurylochus begs for forgiveness for opening the windbag, Odysseus doesn't even acknowledge him. The repeated chorus, symbolizing each of the 6 men's brutal death, drown in your sorrow, choke on your blood, give up your honor, underscores the horrific nature of Odysseus' choice. These aren't merely lost crewmen, they're sacrifices he intentionally made, blood directly on his hands. Perhaps most chillingly, Scylla recognizes Odysseus as her equal. Scylla does not kill Odysseus because she sees him as a fellow monster. They harmonize at the end, singing, "We are the same, you and I," bound by the idea of survival at all costs. Scylla taunts about living as a wraith, forever burdened by the blood he spilled, foreshadowing Odysseus' eventual fate. Even if he returns home, he will never escape the weight of his choices. The ruthless acts he's now committed to survive will haunt him forever. You are the same, you and Shout out to the girl who said that during Thunderbringer, Zeus has majorettes singing in the background where they're like, "Thunder, bring her through the ring." Yes, I cannot unsee it now. At the end of Scylla, Odysseus fully embraces the ruthlessness he once feared, willingly sacrificing his crew. But in Thunderbringer, Odysseus, who's become a perpetrator of ruthlessness, becomes a victim of it, forced into another ruthless decision by Zeus, who enjoys making mortals suffer. Zeus, king of the gods, is ruthless in a different way than Poseidon or even Scylla. While Poseidon is driven by anger over his son, Zeus takes enjoyment in breaking Odysseus. His entrance, with the metaphor of Odysseus' pride being a damsel in distress that he alone can undress and violate, highlights Zeus' sadistic nature. Just as Zeus enjoys dominating women, and I can't even say dominating, just as Zeus enjoys taking advantage of women in Greek mythology, he openly takes pleasure in breaking the pride and spirits of mortals, particularly those who defy or disappoint him. Zeus' entire presence in the song feels playful. Animatics portray him dancing or lounging among the clouds, completely unbothered and gleeful, as Odysseus and his crew are in absolute shock. He enjoys forcing mortals into impossible, ruthless choices just to watch them suffer. Odysseus begs for mercy, just as he did in The Horse and the Infant. "Please don't make me do this," he repeats, desperate and heartbroken. The parallel to that earlier moment is gut-wrenching. Despite all his efforts to become ruthless, in the face of ultimate loss, Odysseus' instinct is to plead for mercy. Zeus, however, does not care. Ultimately, Odysseus chooses survival. He sacrifices what's left of his crew, justifying it in their betrayal and Eurylochus' leadership in the mutiny. Yet his choice isn't without pain. Unlike previous moments, Odysseus doesn't embrace ruthlessness here. Instead, he is dragged into it by Zeus's amusement and cruelty. Eurylochus weakly acknowledges his fate, aware his actions have led them here. The song ends with Zeus casually delivering a lightning strike that wipes out all of Odysseus' crew. There's no hesitation, no mercy, only ruthlessness. Zeus's actions are chilling because he enjoys them. He is a contrast to Odysseus, who, even now, still carries the pain and hesitation of someone who once believed mercy mattered. This ruthlessness escalates and get in the water. After Zeus's massacre in Thunderbringer, Odysseus is left utterly alone and vulnerable, and Poseidon returns, more ruthless and patient than ever. He reveals that he waited to enact revenge on Odysseus when he was just steps away from Ithaca. His goal isn't just revenge, it's torture. Poseidon, fueled by pride, is determined to break Odysseus completely. The ruthlessness Poseidon exhibits here is personal. His threat isn't just to Odysseus' life, it's against his home, his wife, and his son. Poseidon, mirroring Odysseus' blinding of Polyphemus, says, "I'll take your son," and gouge his eyes unless you choose to die. It's reversed from The Horse and the Infant. This time, Odysseus is not the aggressor, but the helpless parent. Poseidon sees ruthlessness not merely as revenge, but as essential to preserving his pride and reputation among gods and mortals alike. His logic is simple: threaten the thing Odysseus loves most and watch him crumble. Yet Odysseus, despite losing 558 of his men to Poseidon, still begs for mercy. But mercy, once again, is useless against a god who thinks that ruthlessness equals strength. Poseidon's viciousness here is not just ruthlessness, but insecurity. Zeus stripped away Odysseus' pride in Thunderbringer, and now Poseidon seeks to reclaim his own pride by breaking Odysseus. Odysseus nearly drowns, hallucinating the presence of his best friend, his second in command, and his mother, and all of the lost crew members. Their voices pull him down and encourage him to surrender. This moment shows the prophecy from No Longer You coming true. Odysseus nearly takes his final breath beneath the waves, overwhelmed by guilt and grief, dragged down by the weight of those he's lost. This ruthless encounter with Poseidon isn't just a test. It's a reminder that gods can be cruel. Odysseus, who thought he understood cruelty, is now powerless against it. He sees clearly there is no reasoning, no mercy. Ruthlessness, as Poseidon teaches him once again, is absolute and unforgiving. By the end of Get in the Water, Odysseus fully understands the cost of ruthlessness, not just the kind he's embraced, but the godlike cruelty he must now prepare himself to match if he's going to survive. This moment marks the culmination of his transformation. In 600 Strike, Odysseus finally matches and surpasses that ruthlessness, fully becoming the monster Poseidon created. Odysseus refuses to die. He does the unthinkable, opening the wind bag and unleashing a storm. Both he and Poseidon battle, and the god is weakened. Poseidon mocks him, because by opening the bag, Odysseus has doomed himself, because now he will never be able to get home. However, Odysseus grabs Poseidon's trident and stabs the god over and over and over again. Though Poseidon is immortal and cannot die, Odysseus' intentions are darker, eternal torture. Each brutal stab symbolizes Odysseus' rage, grief, and rejection of mercy. He's no longer a mortal challenging the gods. He's a monster, punishing another monster, ruthlessly acting under the same philosophy Poseidon once preached to him. Odysseus reminds them of their history. You didn't stop when I begged you, when you told me to close my heart. Didn't you say that ruthlessness is mercy upon our? And each strike is a painful echo of the gods' earlier cruelty, as Poseidon's own lessons return to haunt him. Odysseus is no longer afraid, he no longer hesitates, and he shows absolutely no compassion. Poseidon is now experiencing the brutal consequences of his philosophy, suffering endlessly at the hands of the mortal he once mocked for being weak. Poseidon's final question, desperate and pleading, reveals a deeper irony. After everything you've done, how will you sleep at night? Odysseus' literal answer is one of the musical's coldest lines, next to my wife. Ruthlessness, Odysseus now believes, is justified completely by his goal of returning home. Nothing else matters. Not regret, not morality, and certainly not mercy. The song ends with Odysseus winning, leaving Poseidon broken and helpless. The ruthless mortal, once criticized for being weak, has turned into a monster that even a god fears. Odysseus finally proves he will use any means necessary to return home. He'll torture gods, defy fate, and bear every horror without regret as long as he sleeps next to his wife. In this final battle, Odysseus' transformation into the ruthless, legendary figure he was always destined to be is complete. Poseidon, left humiliated and in agony, is now the victim of the very ruthlessness he taught Odysseus. Both characters are left changed, haunted by the consequences of their choices, but only one emerges victorious. Odysseus is finally going home. Odysseus' journey has shown us ruthlessness born from necessity, vengeance, and even a twisted form of mercy. But in Hold Them Down, Jorge presents a contrast, ruthlessness without justification. This song shows the audience that not every monster has a reason worth sympathizing for. At this point, we've only encountered Penelope through Odysseus' loving memories and determination to return home to her. Now, after witnessing Odysseus' long and ruthless journey, we finally return to Ithaca, where Penelope faces her own nightmare. After years of waiting, she set a challenge. Any suitor who can string her husband's bow and shoot through 12 axes will be king. But none of them can succeed, not because the challenge is impossible, but because none of them are worthy. The suitors' frustration quickly turns sinister. Their leader, Antinous, rallies them after just 3 years, far shorter than Odysseus' 2 decades of suffering. They've grown tired of waiting. Antinous devises a horrific plan. They plan to ambush Telemachus upon his return, brutally murder him, dismember his body, and throw his remains into the ocean. But their cruelty doesn't stop there. Without Telemachus to protect her, the suitors plan to break into Penelope's bedroom and rape her. All 108 of them. Unlike every other ruthless figure in the story, the suitors have no justifiable motive. Polyphemus acted from pain, Poseidon from vengeance, Circe from trauma, and Zeus from his ego. Even Odysseus himself, in all of his brutality, acted out of desperate love and protection for his family. But the suitors, their actions stem purely from selfish ambition, pride, and rage, nothing more. But their arrogance blinds them. As Antinous goes over the horrific plan, an arrow cuts through the air, striking him dead in the throat, a signal to the audience and everyone in Ithaca. The true king has returned, and he has heard everything. Also, what makes this song so particularly strong is that, like I said, we have had up until this point many different characters who at least we can justify their ruthlessness, we can justify their cruelty. And what happens with a lot of Disney movies and a lot of villain arcing stories is that we are able to see a lot of these characters who have justifiable reasonings. Like, a lot of them have reasons for acting the way that they are. But here we have a villain similar. People like to compare Antinous to the priest in Hunchback of Notre Dame. They are not evil out of trauma. They're not evil out of anything else. They are evil for the sake of being evil. The act of unjustifiable cruelty has dire consequences. It summons the wrath of a ruthless monster they've unintentionally created, Odysseus himself. From the very start of the song, the tone is clear. Odysseus is no longer returning triumphantly. He's the monster lurking in the shadows, hunting down each of the suitors who dared to trash his palace, threaten his son's life, and openly plan to rape his wife, Penelope. Which also, something I like to mention, one of the lines he says, I come home to see my palace desecrated, like Troy. Imagine, you've been gone from your home for 20 years, fighting wars, fighting monsters, breaking hearts, doing all those things. And you come home to your house a mess? A palace that you built yourself. Desecrated, sacked like Troy. On top of them planning to kill his son and rape his wife, them trashing his place, you gots to go. Unlike every other monster in Epic, the suitors possess no understandable justification for their ruthless actions. Driven solely by pride, entitlement, and rage, their violence marks them as irredeemable, making Odysseus' merciless slaughter not just understandable, but inevitable. Odysseus recounts this suffering he's endured, from the wrath of gods and monsters to the screams of comrades slain, and makes it clear the depth of his fury. His past hesitations, like struggling to kill the infant, are gone. Here he strikes down Ithaca's nobility without a second thought. He spares no one, and one of them pleads for mercy, using the phrase open arms, once symbolic of kindness from his fallen friend. Odysseus responds by killing him instantly. Mercy, as Odysseus coldly states, has long since drowned, washed away by Poseidon's waves and the blood of everyone he's lost. That moment, too, is that he is taking that moment of what he's learned from Poseidon. In the song Get in the Water, he is begging to Poseidon. He's pleading to him. He's saying, please have mercy on me. Like, I'm just about to go home. I'm trying to live. And Poseidon says no, flatly. So in that moment, during Odysseus, when he is saying, the leader, he planned this whole thing, like, just let me go, Odysseus says no in the same way that Poseidon did, showing that even though all of this, he has learned something from the god of the sea. Throughout this ruthless massacre, Odysseus isn't betrayed as falling from grace, but instead finally embracing his true identity. Just as Polyphemus, Poseidon, and Scylla, who were the monstrous forces Odysseus once feared, he now embodies that very same ruthless power. His name is chanted by the suitors as they would chant the name of any monster, a sign that he has become the ultimate threat. In the end, the palace walls are painted red with blood. Every threat is extinguished, every enemy slain. Ithaca is purified, yet at a terrible cost. He is forever transformed. Gone is the leader willing to show mercy, and his place is a king whose heart has hardened completely. Odysseus is now exactly what Poseidon had warned him he'd become, a monster, forged by fate, driven by necessity, and unapologetically ruthless. Throughout this analysis, we've seen ruthlessness explored deeply in Epic. Each song, each character has shown a different dimension of ruthlessness, as self-defense, as vengeance, as protection, and sometimes even as cruelty for cruelty's sake. Odysseus' journey from hesitation to fully embracing ruthlessness ends in the brutal slaughter of the suitors, a moment where the musical's central message becomes undeniably clear. Sometimes to survive a cruel world, you have to be crueler. Odysseus' ruthless transformation, though brutal, is portrayed not as a tragedy, but a triumph. He has become exactly what he needed to be to protect everything he loves. His story isn't simply about a man losing his morality. It's about a man understanding that sometimes, in the face of true cruelty, embracing the monster is the only path to victory. Ruthlessness, in the end, becomes his ultimate weapon and his greatest strength. This life is amazing. Polities and the illusion of mercy. In the unforgiving world of epic, ruthlessness is key to survival. Odysseus, initially hesitant to accept the harsh reality, is taught through painful experiences that mercy can lead to devastating outcomes. Each agonizing lesson, from the consequences of sparing the Cyclops, which brought on Poseidon's wrath, to the ultimate sacrifice of his crew, reinforces the brutal truth that mercy is a luxury he cannot afford. However, amidst this cruel reality, mercy does emerge in a rare but impactful manner. Jorge Rivera-Herrans introduces this stark contrast to the character of Polites in the song Open Arms. Polites recognizes Odysseus' exhaustion and encourages him to trust strangers. Odysseus, scarred by war, remains wary. Polites urges him to be empathetic, highlighting Odysseus' internal guilt and trauma from years of war. Polites' openly line, "You can relax, my friend," shows his deep understanding of Odysseus. He recognizes Odysseus' struggle, stating, "Look at how you grip your sword." Enough said. Polites advocates for trust and openness, stating that lowering one's guard is not a weakness, but a strength. He believes that kindness can create safety and peace, a stark contrast to Odysseus' cautiousness. The lotus fruit incident reveals the dangers of Polites' philosophy. Polites initially feels justified in his beliefs when offered fruit by the lotus eaters. However, Odysseus quickly recognizes the fruit's dangerous mind-controlling abilities. Despite this close call, Polites remains unchanged. When the lotus eaters guide them towards the scary cave, Polites continues his open approach, unknowingly leading them towards tragedy and turning him into a pancake. I'm sorry. That might have been a little too far. Odysseus initially resists, but eventually tries to adopt his philosophy. The resulting tragedies demonstrate that mercy in this world is a weakness, not a strength. Although noble, mercy fails in Jorge Rivera-Herrans' world because it relies on the inherent goodness of others, a trust that is rarely rewarded. Odysseus' experiences highlight this harsh reality throughout the musical. Odysseus learns harsh lessons and rejects mercy when given the chance. Early in his journey, he spared Polyphemus the Cyclops, which led to Poseidon's wrath and the loss of his crew. He also almost got trapped with his men when he showed mercy to the lotus eaters. Polites' philosophy is different, valuing kindness as a form of courage. However, Polites' tragic death while singing Open Arms in the Underworld shows the sad truth. Mercy may be beautiful in theory, but it doesn't work in reality. Odysseus chooses ruthlessness and survives, ultimately killing the suitors in Ithaca. This turns him into a monster, and this isn't seen as tragic, but as unavoidable in a world ruled by gods, fate, and violence. What pride builds and what it destroys. Pride in Epic the Musical is a double-edged sword. It can give characters strength, fuel their identity, and motivate them to protect the people they care about, but it can just as easily become a flaw, driving them to make reckless choices, reject help, or let their ego speak louder than reason. Whether it's pride in family, legacy, intellect, or personal honor, it often forces characters to make difficult, high-stakes decisions. This tension between pride as a strength and pride as a downfall begins with Legendary. We see Telemachus grappling with the weight of a legacy he's never fully known. Isolated in his own home, kept hidden for his own protection, he's stuck in his bedroom while the suitors threaten his mother and mock him. Though done out of love, this protection leaves him feeling powerless, trapped in a world he doesn't understand, shaped by stories of a father he's never really met. Lines like "living in this world you left behind" and "'cause I'm stuck with your stories but no clue who you are" show how deeply his pride is rooted in absence. He's desperate to know the man behind the legend, and even more desperate to live up to it. Telemachus doesn't want fame for fame's sake. He wants strength, validation, and the power to defend his family and honor his father's name. His pride is pure, even naive. He believes in a heroic world where good can win, an innocent belief that contrasts with Odysseus, who has embraced a darker, more ruthless version of being a hero. Still, Telemachus' journey begins with that longing, but I want to be legendary. His stutter, intentionally performed rather than a production effect, adds a layer of childness to his ambition. He wants the recognition that comes with being a hero, but he doesn't yet understand what it will cost. That begins to change when he argues and stands up for his mother. In that moment, he taps into something deeper than image or glory. It's the instinct to protect. That act of defiance plants the seed of ruthlessness, not as cruelty, but as love. Telemachus' pride in his family name is not about ego, it's about identity. It's about finally being seen, respected, and strong enough to stand for what he loves. And though he doesn't realize it yet, his plea for strength is being heard. Athena, the same goddess who once mentored his father, is already watching. Telemachus' journey is just the beginning. But Legendary shows us how pride, when shaped by love and desperation, can become the first step toward the kind of ruthlessness needed to survive. Pride, as we see, takes many forms in Epic. While Telemachus's pride is rooted in a desire for recognition and the strength to protect his family, the goddess Athena embodies a different side of this theme. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, is confident not just in her power, but in her intellect. She takes pride in her mind and her ability to mentor her great heroes. Her choice to guide Odysseus isn't random, it's calculated. He's smart, cunning, royal, and brave, exactly the kind of mortal who can reflect her greatness. From the moment she takes him under his wing, Athena sees Odysseus not as a partner, but as a project. Her mentorship is filled with possessiveness and control. She recalls how he once saw through her illusion and killed the boar, proof that he was, in her words, a warrior of the mind. In that moment, she claims ownership over his brilliance, shaping him into her image and declaring, "I still intend to make sure you don't fall behind, and don't disappoint me." These aren't words of encouragement, they're warnings and expectations. Her pride in her role as a mentor pushes her to view Odysseus less as a man and more as an extension of herself, someone she can build, refine, and unleash onto the world. Athena's pride fuels her ruthlessness. She teaches Odysseus how to shut off his heart, how to lead with reason instead of emotion, and how to protect himself. When she asks, "Have you forgotten to turn off your heart? Let me remind you." It's not a concern, it's disappointment. Pride in her teachings leads her to expect obedience, even at the cost of Odysseus' humanity. Her cleverness, her cold calculation, is a survival tool she wields like a weapon. And while she believes she's protecting him, she's also protecting her own sense of identity and divine authority. What makes Warrior of the Mind especially compelling is how it contrasts Athena's prideful control with Odysseus' growing confidence in his own intellect. I always think of the animation, and I'll put it here because it's beautiful, of him going, "Ha ha ha ha. So let's be honest, you are Athena, a badass in the arena, unmatched, witty, and queen of the best strategies we've seen." Anyways, their playful banter is filled with tension. She tests him and he bluffs his way through, matching her wit with his own. This is where his pride begins to take root, not in brute strength, but in his ability to outsmart and outmaneuver. Athena may think she's teaching him to think like her, but Odysseus is also learning how to challenge her. In both Legendary and Warrior of the Mind, pride is wrapped up in identity, who you are and what you believe you're capable of, and who you want to become. For Telemachus, the pride is still fragile and forming. For Athena, it's a shield she uses to maintain power and control. In both cases, pride allows them to be ruthless, but that ruthlessness is driven by the need to protect themselves or the ones they love. But when pride hardens into stubbornness, it can become a liability. And in Remember Them, Odysseus' pride costs him everything. Fresh from Athena's warning and mentorship, Odysseus is forced to act quickly after witnessing the ruthless, devastating death of his closest comrades. Shocked, grieving, and angry, he turns the club into a spear and blinds the Cyclops. Athena tells him to kill him and to be ruthless. Instead, Odysseus hesitates. This is where Odysseus' pride and his ideals begin to clash with survival. His decision not to kill the Cyclops isn't purely about strategy. It's driven by a stubborn need to honor his fallen friend and prove that mercy is strength. But mercy, in this case, isn't strength. And when Odysseus turns back, he shouts his full name, I didn't mean to shake the table, his full name, his address, his social security number, his wife's name, his son's name, all the way to the Cyclops. And I'm being a little overdramatic, but whenever I hear it, I cringe. This move doesn't just feel like a prideful instance, but it's also a rebellion against Athena, and it's a fatal mistake. The one moment of pride gives the Cyclops, and by extension Poseidon, the name, the address, the social security number of the man who blinded his son. It's ironic. Earlier in Warrior of the Mind, Odysseus refused to reveal his name to Athena out of caution and cunning. Now, consumed by grief and ego, he blurts it out to a monster without hesitation. Pride transforms from confidence to recklessness. His crew, meanwhile, sing, "Let's kill him," ready to do exactly what Athena told him to do. But Odysseus, clinging to the memory of his friend and his ideals, overrides them. He still believes that mercy makes him a good leader, a noble one at that. He's trying to protect his memory, but that choice, driven by pride, ultimately ensures that more of them will die. Remember Them is a turning point. It asks whether clinging to pride, especially pride in one's values and reputation, is worth the cost when lives are on the line. Odysseus thinks he's honoring his comrades, but his refusal to be ruthless when it matters most only brings more death. Pride clouds his judgment, blocks survival, and sets him on a course of suffering he could have avoided. And this is just the beginning. The fallout of this moment doesn't just haunt Odysseus, it ruins the one relationship that's held him together so far. In My Goodbye, we see the emotional cost of that decision, not just on the battlefield, but in his closest relationship. Pride didn't just blind Odysseus to danger, it pushed him to challenge the one person who had been guiding him from the very beginning. And now, that relationship is falling apart. Athena ends their partnership because Odysseus refuses to follow her teachings. But from Odysseus' perspective, he's the one saying goodbye because he realizes Athena never saw him as an equal. While he wanted friendship, she saw a project. While he wanted connection, she demanded obedience. I'll remind you, I saw you as a friend, he tells her, hurt and angry. And it's clear now, his pride, his values, and his grief have completely clashed with hers. Athena's pride lies in her intellect, her role as a divine mentor, and the expectation that Odysseus would be her warrior of the mind. She sees his choices as a weakness. You are reckless, sentimental at best. Your dead friends can attest. But that softness, the grief, the emotional burden of morality is exactly what Athena, as an immortal, can't understand. Her pride lets her walk away, convinced that she's right. You'll keep yours, and I'll keep mine, she says, not just referring to their values, but also to their pride. Odysseus, in turn, lashes out with equal pride and pain. He accuses Athena of being selfish, prideful, and vain. And I didn't put this in the notes, but this is important to mention. He tells her, I'm fighting for my life here. I'm fighting to get home to my wife and my son. What are you fighting for? You are fighting to be known. You're fighting for people to actually give a shit about you. But you're not going to have that because you're alone. And then there's just like a pause in the song because you know that cut deep with her. And every time I hear it, I go, ooh, ooh. Their final exchange of him saying that to her, it's petty, it's human, and it's tragic. They're both so tied up in their own views and their own pride that neither of them are willing to yield. You're alone. Athena believes she molded Odysseus into the man he is, and Odysseus believes he never needed her to begin with. Both are wrong, and both are right. But their refusal to meet in the middle destroys the connection that they had. And this rift is more than emotional, it's strategic. Without Athena's guidance, Odysseus is left to face the wrath of gods and the cruelty of fate alone. As she says, this day you'll sever your own head. In choosing pride over compromise, Odysseus severs more than a friendship. He severs his own safety net. Together, Remember Them and My Goodbyes show just how devastating pride can be when it stops being a source of strength and becomes a wall. And as we'll see next, when pride spreads beyond the self and into a group, it doesn't just destroy relationships. It creates a mutiny. After sacrificing 6 men to Scylla, Eurylochus and the crew are horrified. Eurylochus tries to justify it to Odysseus, but eventually he says what no one else dares to. You miss your wife so bad you drain the lives of your own crew. And as harsh as that sounds, he's not wrong. Odysseus has admitted before that he'd trade the world to see his wife and son again. His focus has turned into an obsession. The line between ruthless leadership and emotional recklessness has blurred, and now it's his own men who are suffering the cost. The irony is almost cruel. Odysseus once took pride in finding clever, bloodless solutions. We should try to find a way no one ends up dead. But in his decision to sacrifice 6 men to Scylla, he does the exact opposite. And worse, he says nothing to Eurylochus. No justification, no apology, just silence. Say something, Eurylochus pleads. I can't. Odysseus finally admits. Because it's true. He knew what would happen, and he let it happen anyway. This moment breaks Eurylochus. A man who spent the entire journey running from monsters finally stands and confronts the one he can no longer ignore, his captain. All his buried resentment, all the moments Odysseus gaslit him or overrode his voice, explode into fury. And while he raises a weapon to a king, a treasonous act, it's also a desperate cry for someone who's watched too many of his friends die for decisions he didn't agree with. If you want all the power, you must carry all the blame. But Eurylochus isn't blameless either. His pride is filled with hypocrisy. This is the same man who once begged to leave others behind, opened the windbag, and constantly chose flight over fight. Until now. Now when he finally chooses to stand up, it's not to save the crew from a monster, it's to rebel against their leader, trying to throw the group into chaos. The ruthlessness they needed from Odysseus has been replaced by violence among themselves. Even Odysseus attempts to de-escalate. Lower your weapon comes way too late. His pride in leadership has blinded him to how far things have deteriorated. He thought his authority was enough, but authority without trust is nothing, and now his men are the obstacle to his survival. Later, Eurylochus sings, "We're never going to make it home, you know it's true." For him, it's despair. For Odysseus, it's a challenge. That moment hides the difference between them. Eury has given up. Odysseus never will. But that refusal to give up, his ruthless drive to get him home, has separated him from everyone around him. Mutiny is the collapse of everything pride has built. Once a source for unity and identity, pride now feels ego, resentment, and revolt. Odysseus' controlled ruthlessness could have prevented order, but instead, the chaos he tried to outrun has finally caught up, with his crew and with himself. Ultimately, Epic the Musical uses the double-edged sword of pride to show off its central theme, that ruthlessness is sometimes mercy for protection and survival. We see this mirrored across different characters. Telemachus and Athena show how pride and identity and legacy can foster strength, sharpen purpose, and even justify the kind of calculated ruthlessness necessary to survive. But for others, like Odysseus and his crew, pride hardens into ego and defiance. In each case, pride pushes characters to the edge, forcing them to confront the difficult truth that in a world as harsh as the one depicted in Epic, ruthlessness isn't a choice. It's a necessity for those who dare to have pride in something. The complexity of loyalty. Loyalty in Epic the Musical is not a passive or gentle emotion. It's an active, often painful, and high-stakes force that drives characters to make difficult choices. Throughout the musical, characters are constantly forced to confront the question, what does it truly mean to stand by someone? Loyalty becomes a tool, sometimes used to uplift and connect, sometimes used to control and manipulate, and occasionally pushed to its breaking point. It's not a guarantee of safety or comfort. Instead, it often places characters directly in harm's way. Epic shows us that loyalty is a choice that demands action, and in the face of danger, uncertainty, and betrayal, being loyal isn't always about staying kind. It's about knowing when to fight for those you love, even if it means becoming someone harder in the process. Compared to the demanding and ruthless forms of loyalty that we see elsewhere in Epic, Will Be Fine presents a unique idea of loyalty, one built on vulnerability and empathy through Telemachus and Athena. Telemachus, still dealing with the absence of his father and yearning for connection, approaches Athena with openness. His line, "You're my friend, I couldn't ask for more," isn't just a polite gesture. It establishes a bond of equals and loyalty rooted in mutual affection and respect. This power dynamic contrasts with others that we see elsewhere, like, in example, with Odysseus's demanding expectations of loyalty from his crew. Telemachus isn't seeking a goddess's favor, he's offering genuine friendship. This open-hearted loyalty invites Athena to be vulnerable with Telemachus. Known for her strategic mind and cold demeanor, she hints at her regrets and uncertainties. There are lines where she reflects on past decisions regarding Odysseus and how she might have acted differently. In these moments, Athena is not the all-knowing goddess, but a being wrestling with their own choices. This vulnerability is key because it shows us a different kind of loyalty. Telemachus isn't offering blind obedience. He's offering empathy and encouragement. He urges Athena to reconnect with Odysseus, not knowing that she's talking about his own father. He's demonstrating a loyalty not just to her, but to the idea of healing old bonds. In Telemachus' eyes, even a goddess is capable of growth and redemption. The contrast in the song further emphasizes this theme. Athena's lines often carry the weight of past pain and maybes, while Telemachus' lyrics are filled with a hopeful belief in the future. This contrast isn't just a beautiful duet, it's showing us how loyalty can function, acknowledging past hurts while striving for a better future. Will Be Fine also serves as a crucial counterpoint to more demanding and ruthless forms of loyalty we encounter in Epic. Athena's relationship with Odysseus and Warrior of the Mind is a prime example. There, her loyalty is to her pride and her desire to control and shape Odysseus. It's a conditional, almost transactional kind of loyalty. Will Be Fine, in contrast, presents a loyalty that is freely given, emotionally supportive, and focused on mutual growth. Finally, it's worth noting that Telemachus' innocent belief in the goodness of the world, a trait we see in Legendary, shows his capacity for this kind of loyalty, a soft loyalty rooted in trust and openness. However, the events of Epic will challenge this, forcing Telemachus to confront harsher realities, as we see in Little Wolf, a song that tests the very foundations of his loyalty. Little Wolf isn't just a song, it's a key moment where loyalty is tested and Telemachus' journey of maturing begins. In Epic, loyalty isn't simple, it's complex and often conflicting, and this song captures that struggle primarily through Telemachus. At its core, Little Wolf is about divided loyalties. We see Telemachus pulled in different directions. There's his loyalty to Odysseus, the legendary father he barely knows, yet desperately wants to become. There's his loyalty to his mother, Penelope, who he's trying to protect against the suitors. Finally, we see the beginnings of a loyalty to his own sense of justice, a need to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Initially, we see him through the eyes of the suitors, weak, young, and easy to manipulate. Their taunts, "Want to entertain me," and "I'll teach you all the lessons your daddy never could," highlight this vulnerability. They try to insult him by pointing out that he wants to be a man, but they see him as a baby. They also use the fact that Telemachus wants to be like his father against him, which is what we saw in Legendary. But Little Wolf is a turning point. We see Telemachus taking his first steps towards defiance. Even though he loses the physical fight, he begins to understand the importance of standing up for what's right. He's no longer just a hesitant boy, he's becoming a young man grappling with responsibility. And while Penelope doesn't sing in the song, her presence is strongly felt. Her loyalty to Odysseus is a constant in this song. After 20 years, she still has not chosen another man. The strain this places on the kingdom is evident, and Telemachus' actions, in part, are motivated by this loyalty to protect and defend her honor after the suitor's comments in Legendary. The lyrics and subtext in Little Wolf are crucial to understanding its themes. The suitor's language is deliberately demeaning, designed to provoke and emasculate Telemachus. Their taunts are a direct attack on his desire to live up to his father's legacy. In contrast, Athena's words provide guidance and support, but also highlights Telemachus's potential. The wolf and dog imagery is particularly important. Athena notably refers to the suitors as a dog, while Telemachus is the wolf. This contrast is loaded with meaning. Dogs can be seen as vicious, while wolves, though wild, are also loyal to their packs. In this context, Telemachus is a little wolf, young, but possessing a larger heart than all the men combined, and with the potential for loyalty and strength. But beyond the loyalty, there's also a strong theme of defiance. While Telemachus expresses his loyalty to his mother and his father's legacy, he also begins to question the authority of the suitors and assert his own independence. This defiance adds complexity to his portrayal of loyalty, showing that it's not just about blind obedience. Little Wolf is more than just a song about Telemachus wanting to defend his home. It's a crucial exploration of loyalty in its most complex form, and is a pivotal point in Telemachus' journey in Epic the Musical. While Telemachus grapples with divided loyalties, the following song, Luck Runs Out, introduces a new conflict, the tension between a leader's vision and the loyalty of its crew. Okay, this song's actually really funny. Every time I hear this song, this is literally what I reference. He goes, "You've heard the legend of the islands in the sky, you know it's true." He goes, "We're in the home of the wind god. You don't know for sure. How many floating islands have you seen before?" Be so for real, Eurylochus. The song immediately establishes a conflict in leadership. Odysseus, fresh from the events of the Cyclops, is determined to seek aid from Aeolus, the wind god. However, Eurylochus challenges his plan, voicing his concern that seeking help from a god is dangerous and will ultimately lead to their demise. This challenge isn't just a disagreement, it's a direct test of the crew's loyalty. Eurylochus, as a second in command, should be his most trusted supporter. Him questioning Odysseus' judgment, especially in front of the entire crew, plants seeds of doubts and undermines Odysseus' authority. Odysseus, in turn, responds by demanding loyalty, or silence. We see his ruthlessness emerge here, not in violence, but in suppressing his voice. He prioritizes maintaining control and protecting his plan, as he sees it, over addressing the legitimate fears of the crew. This need for control, which has been building in previous songs, isolates him further from the crew. Odysseus' behavior here can be connected to the theme of pride. His insistence on being right and his unwillingness to consider other perspectives stem from a prideful belief in his own leadership. Eurylochus' challenge is understandable, even if it borders on disloyalty. He has witnessed the horrors of their journey, including the brutal encounter with Polyphemus, and he is acting out of concern for the crew's safety. He questions Odysseus' judgment, asking how long will it be until Odysseus makes a decision that gets them all killed. However, his method of challenging Odysseus, especially in front of the entire crew, undermines Odysseus' authority and fuels the growing tension. When he has that conversation to him, he reassures all of the crew members. He tells them, "Hey, I did take 600 men to war, and it isn't until after we left the war that suddenly people are dying and mistakes are happening." And again, I understand that I am making mistakes, but I cannot have you saying these things in front of the crew of all the men that we have right now. And he's doing that and demanding that kind of silence and disrespect out of him. So, as we see, Luck Runs Out is beginning to foreshadow the complete breakdown of loyalty that we see in Keep Your Friends Close. We're starting to set up a conflict between loyalty and the leader and the idea of self-preservation. The crew, and Eurylochus in particular, are beginning to question whether Odysseus' leadership is truly serving their best interests. The song asks, where do loyalties lie? Is it with the mission, the leader, or the collective safety of the crew? Keep Your Friends Close show us a culmination of the crew's distrust, introducing a new element, manipulation from the gods. Following the tension in Luck Runs Out, Aeolus, portrayed with a playful feminine energy, offers Odysseus aid. However, his minions sow seeds of doubt among the crew, and this divine interference immediately shatters what little trust remained. The minions plant rumors of treasure within the windbag, and this act generates paranoia and suspicion, directly testing the crew's loyalty towards each other and Odysseus. This manipulation highlights how easily external forces can exploit existing vulnerabilities within the group. Odysseus' reaction to these rumors reveals his own growing distrust. Instead of reassuring his crew or addressing their concerns, which he only did once, he can become secretive and possessive of the bag. He forces himself to stay awake for 9 days to guard it, and an act that, while seemingly protective, ultimately isolates him further from his own crew. It's treasure! His actions, driven by paranoia, communicate a clear lack of trust, further fueling the crew's resentment and making them more likely to act against him. At the end of the song, the windbag is opened while Odysseus is asleep. In the song, we don't know who it is, but in Mutiny, Eurylochus admits that it was him, the person who challenged Odysseus in the previous song. This is a direct, decisive act of disloyalty. Driven by greed and suspicion, he chooses to disobey Odysseus' direct orders. The events of Keep Your Friends Close set in motion a chain of disastrous consequences, primarily fueled by Eurylochus' act of betrayal. The song ends with the crew's progress being undone, as the opened windbag unleashes chaos, driving them towards the land of the giants. Eurylochus' actions in Keep Your Friends Close directly enable the events of Puppeteer. His betrayal weakens the crew, making them more vulnerable to Circe's manipulation. Circe, much like the Winians, uses deceptions and false promises, a tactic that proves effective due to the crew's already fractured trust. Therefore, Eurylochus' disloyalty in Keep Your Friends Close is not just an isolated incident. It's a catalyst that leads the crew into further danger, showing us the high cost of disloyalty. After escaping the wrath of Poseidon, Eurylochus tries to confess to Odysseus his role in opening the windbag, but Odysseus dismisses him, prioritizing the task of securing the island. This dismissal is significant. It highlights Odysseus' continued distrust of the crew and his tendency to prioritize the mission over communication and addressing the crew's concern. This dismissal was seen in Luck Runs Out, and we are continuing to see the isolating effects his leadership has. A few hours passed after Odysseus sends Eurylochus to go make sure the island is secure, and Eurylochus comes back as the only one left, which immediately concerns Odysseus. Eurylochus tells Odysseus that he and his men met a woman named Circe, who tricked them into coming to her palace and proceeded to turn the rest of them into pigs by putting a spell on their meals. Eurylochus' description of Circe and her power introduces a new kind of threat, a stark contrast to the brute force of the Cyclops or the chaotic power of the storm. Circe's danger lies in manipulation and magic. This vulnerability to a different kind of enemy shows the crew's naivety and their inability to tell when true danger is near. Eurylochus even makes a point to Odysseus that he isn't able to handle this, asking him if he's going to walk away again like he did with the Cyclops instead of killing her. Because we are weak to a power like this. A woman. Circe's lyrics, "Come inside, welcome to the best part of your lives," reveal her deceptive nature. She uses promise and a false sense of security to lure the crew in, mirroring the deceptive tactics used by the Winians in the previous song. This pattern of deception highlights how easily the crew is swayed by appearances. The puppeteer metaphor in the song's title becomes central here. Circe is not just powerful, she's a manipulator, controlling her victims like puppets, stripping them all of their agency and their free will. The transformation of the crew into pigs is a brutal consequence of Circe's manipulation. It's a physical manifestation of being controlled, losing one's humanity and the price one pays for their naivety. Circe sings about this transformation with the lines, "This is the price we pay to live. The world is not meant to forgive." This also connects to the themes of ruthlessness. Circe isn't being ruthless without reason. She's doing this as a lesson learned to protect her and her nymphs, because as established and done for, whenever they have trusted outsiders, they've been hurt and possibly even sexually assaulted. Eurylochus, witnessing this, tells Odysseus to abandon the transformed crew members, prioritizing survival over loyalty. Odysseus' decision to save his crew, despite Eurylochus' warning, is a defining moment. It shows his loyalty even when faced with danger and the possibility of failure. This choice is a contrast to Eurylochus' willingness to leave them behind, highlighting the conflicting loyalties and moral choices that the characters face. Odysseus is doing this regardless of the consequences that may happen when going up against a witch. Also, my theory is that I think that Eurylochus is telling Odysseus to ditch the men that got turned into pigs because one of them saw him open the windbag and they don't want him snitching. That's my personal theory. And again, it makes sense because he's saying you really should ditch them. Because A, obviously she's a witch and he's immortal, but also he's protecting his own skin in that case. And I think especially because after this moment, we really don't hear any kind of defiance come out of Eurylochus until Mutiny. So then he shuts his mouth until he sacrifices 6 men. That's my theory. The loyalty test Odysseus faces in Love in Paradise is laid in Puppeteer, where Odysseus chooses to rescue his crew over Eurylochus' abandonment. Puppeteer presents a clear choice between self-preservation and responsibility, where Love in Paradise explores the enduring power of Odysseus' love for Penelope amidst temptation and isolation. Odysseus, having lost his crew, finds himself on Calypso's island, where he's offered comfort and much, much more. Calypso's initial offer, "I've got all that you want here, all that you need here, just you and me, my dear, my love in paradise," presents a tempting escape from his suffering. This highlights Calypso's concept of love as providing ease and fulfilling immediate needs, a chance to be worshipped. However, Odysseus' loyalty to Penelope creates the central conflict in the song. His rejection, "I'm not your man," underscores his commitment. His love for Penelope, though not explicitly sung in longing here, becomes his lifeline, a source of strength against despair, survival's guilt, and even suicidal thoughts. Yet, his loyalty is also a burden, forcing him to reject Calypso's offer and endure immense emotional pain. People love to use the song because Calypso is like the embodiment of delusion. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about her, but you can't help the delusion. She said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're awake. You look fantastic. You talk in your sleep. You talk about Penelope. Who's Penelope?" He goes, "She's my wife." She goes, "Anyways, I've got all that you want here, all that you need here. Come have sex with me." And he goes, "No." "Hey, let me worship you. Let's go have sex." "No, don't touch me." He stays on her island for 7 years, and it's not till after almost committing suicide, after 7 years of being with her, that he finally cries out to Athena, "Athena, please, get me off this island." The song highlights contrasting concepts of love. Calypso's love is evident in the lines, "I'm what you want here, I'm what you need here, just you and me, my love in paradise. Now till the end of time, from here on out, you're mine, all mine." That emphasizes possession and the desire to provide a self-contained paradise, isolating Odysseus from his past and purpose. Odysseus' love, on the other hand, is rooted in longing, commitment, and the willingness to endure hardship. It's not just a passive memory, it's an active force, shaping his choices. His firm stance, "Hell no, I'll kill you where you stand, I'm no pet, I'm a married man," reveals a ruthlessness towards any temptation that threatens his loyalty. Athena, inspired by her conversation with Telemachus, witnesses Odysseus' suffering and is moved to intervene, a moment that speaks to her own sense of loyalty and desire for redemption. This divine intervention underscores the power of loyalty and love to inspire action and change. As Athena says, 7 years she's kept you trapped out of your control. Time can take a heavy toll, providing context for the duration of Odysseus' struggle and reinforcing the theme of loyalty by highlighting the external forces working against it. Love in Paradise emphasizes that love and loyalty often demand sacrifice. Odysseus' commitment requires him to be ruthless with himself, denying himself a seemingly easier path to remain true to Penelope and his desire to return home. After 20 long years, with Odysseus still absent, that unwavering loyalty is put to the test in Ithaca, where Penelope faces increasing pressure from insistent suitors. Flipping the script with the challenge, the song presents Penelope's unwavering loyalty to Odysseus instead of vice versa. This loyalty shapes her actions and decisions, even as she faces pressure from the suitors who are fighting for her hand in marriage. Penelope's loyalty is not simply passive faithfulness. It becomes a strategic tool for survival and preserving Odysseus' legacy. Penelope uses deception and manipulation as a means to protect herself. These are often tools that are used by gaslighters against their victims. She uses it to protect herself, her home, and Odysseus' legacy. She lies to the suitors to delay their advances and maintain control, stating, "I'd rather lie than allow them to think they've won." She does this by making the shroud for her father and then undoing it every single night. And it isn't until a maid snitches, unfortunately, they would lose a job, me personally. Because why is it that you do not know that I'm trying to... It's been 20 years. Why are we snitching? Especially on men that are trashing my palace? Fired. This deception is a form of resistance and self-preservation. Again, we are seeing this done by a woman in Greek mythology, especially a Spartan woman, something that is not typically done or seen for women in Greek mythology. Mostly in Greek mythology, women are used as toys, they're used as pawns, they're used as plot points. Very rarely, and it does happen, but very rarely are we able to see a woman in Greek mythology being used as a power symbol. A woman who is able to use these negative features and the manipulation tactics to their advantage. The challenge portrays Penelope as a clever and resourceful woman, not just a passive victim, not just a woman that people are begging for their hand in marriage, not just a woman who is just waiting for her husband to come back home. While the suitors display arrogance and entitlement, Penelope's thoughts reveal her intelligence and determination. Her use of the shroud and the challenge to deceive the suitors highlight her approach to protecting her household and her son. The song solidifies Penelope's role as an active participant in shaping her fate, driven by her commitment to Odysseus. Penelope's internal conflict is evident in the line, "Though I never thought I would resort to this," which reveals her emotional cost of her deception and the vulnerability she hides beneath her calm exterior. The suitors' impatient reminders that time is fleeting, it's running out, create a sense of urgency. Again, I would like to remind you that Penelope has been committed to Odysseus for 20 years. Odysseus has been trying to get home for 20 years. The suitors have only been there for 3 years. They feel like there is a sense of urgency because as they sing and hold them down, they feel like that they are getting older and that the boy is getting bolder. So it's not a sense of urgency for Penelope. Penelope will wait 50 years for Odysseus to come home. The suitors, as we see and hold them down, a few hours before they decide to take ruthless action. Her drawn-out waiting at the end of the song carries weight. It is a central theme and a motif that has repeated throughout the musical, but it's also filled with the emotional burden of her faithfulness. Building on the established premise of Odysseus' absence and the suitor's relentless pressure, the challenge demonstrates the direct repercussions of his situation. Penelope's loyalty is not tested in isolation, but is rather forged in the face of adversity, demanding both cleverness and endurance. Across epic, loyalty isn't simple. It's a complex force, often tested, strained, and even weaponized. Whether expressed through tender empathy or through strategic deception, loyalty in epic demands difficult choices. Odysseus' journey is a prime example of the conflict between loyalty and ruthlessness. Although his ultimate goal is driven by love for his family and a desire to return home, his path is marked by actions that are morally questionable, yet necessary for survival. He strategically withholds information, manipulates his crew, and makes choices that prioritize the mission's success, even if it comes at a cost. The idea that ruthlessness is sometimes necessary within loyalty is reflected in the stories of Odysseus, Penelope, Telemachus, and others, proving that loyalty in epic is not just about devotion, but about the strength and sacrifice needed to protect what truly matters. Love's triumph against all odds. After everything Odysseus has endured, gods, monsters, you know the roster, it would be easy to assume that love has no place in a journey filled with violence. And yet, love is what keeps him going. Not just romantic love, but all its forms. The kind that breaks you, the kind that heals you, and the kind that forces you to become something harder just to protect it. In Epic the Musical, love is never simple. It's transformative. Sometimes it leads to mercy. Other times it requires a kind of emotional brutality, pushing people away, letting them go, or burying parts of yourself for the sake of someone else. As this video nears its end, we see how love survives where everything else falls away. The complexity of love is immediately apparent in There Are Other Ways, a song that introduces us to the theme through the contrasting characters of Odysseus and Circe. Odysseus' love for Penelope is portrayed as a powerful force and a source of strength, allowing him to resist Circe's seduction and manipulation. This love is not simply an emotion, but a deliberate choice. In contrast, Circe's understanding of relationships has been shaped by her past experiences with love, sexual assault, and her current isolation. The song explores the depths of Odysseus' character, revealing his unwavering love and commitment to Penelope. His resistance to Circe shows that his love is not merely passive, but an active force guiding his actions. The lyrics also exposes Odysseus' vulnerability as he acknowledges his reliance on Penelope as his source of strength and expresses his deep longing for her after 12 long years of separation. This emotional depth adds layers to his heroism, showcasing the love that fuels his challenging journey. Circe, on the other hand, experiences a profound shift within the song. Initially, she personifies ruthlessness and control, even wanting to kill Odysseus. However, Odysseus' genuine love for Penelope catches her off guard and challenges her perspective. The revelation that she has been in love before alludes to a hidden vulnerability and sets the stage for her transformation. Ultimately, Circe's decision to show compassion and assist Odysseus stems directly from her encounter with the intensity of his love, implying a newfound sense of empathy and a glimpse of her alternative way to connect. Odysseus' lyrics, "Back at home, my wife awaits for me, she's my everything, my Penelope, and she's all my power," highlight Penelope's significance in his life and the strength that comes from their bond. Penelope is not portrayed as merely a distant figure, but as the driving force behind his actions and resilience, something that we saw from the very first song, The Horse and the Infant. This contrasts with Circe's opening lines. There are other ways of persuasion, other modes of control. There are other means of deceit. There are other roads to the soul. These highlight her initial reliance on manipulation and power. However, a shift in Circe's tone and lyrics later in the song, maybe showing one act of kindness leads to kinder souls down the road. I remember actions of passion. I have been in love once before. Reveals a change in perspective and a willingness to explore love and kindness. This suggests that softening in her heart. Also, before I continue, one of my favorite memes where it's just like, "Captain, what cunning strategy did you use to defeat the witch?" And Odysseus goes, "She took her shirt off and I started crying." The memes in this community are so funny. Odysseus' love for Penelope drives his longing, vulnerability, and unwavering determination, which create a rich emotional landscape that contrasts with Circe's initial coldness and calculated demeanor. The song captures Circe's emotional journey as she transforms from a figure of power and control to one of vulnerability and openness. Her reminiscence of past love and the eventual act of mercy reveals her capacity for empathy and a yearning for connection, emotions that have been hidden beneath her hardened exterior. The portrayal of love in There Are Other Ways is enriched by its connection to other songs within Epic the Musical. Odysseus' consistent focus on Penelope in songs like Full Speed Ahead, The Horse and the Infant, Just a Man, and Keep Your Friends Close emphasize the importance of love and loyalty in his journey. Building on this, There Are Other Ways shows us how much love can influence and change others' perspective. Furthermore, Circe's transformation in the song hints at her potential for change and foreshadows the overarching theme of transformation present throughout the musical, even in seamlessly unchangeable characters. This transformative power of love is further explored in the song Not Sorry for Loving You. This may be my most controversial section. More controversial than the ranking of all 40 songs, because I'm going to defend Calypso for the next 5 minutes. Hear me out. Please, hear me out. Not Sorry for Loving You serves as a centerpiece for a reinterpretation of Calypso, the goddess who kept Odysseus on her island for 7 years. She transforms from a captor into a complex woman grappling with love, loneliness, and the painful realities of unrequited affection. Through a careful examination of the song's context, lyrics, and emotional undercurrents, it is possible to defend Calypso's actions, revealing a character driven by genuine emotion rather than malice intent. Calypso's imprisonment of Odysseus has been interpreted negatively, with many labeling it, especially in the original story, as rape and sexual assault, because in many interpretations, Odysseus does sleep with Calypso, even if he does not enjoy it. While these readings are completely valid, Epic does offer a different perspective. The musical acknowledges her very, 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 very problematic nature, but also provides context by highlighting her centuries and centuries of isolation and longing for companionship. Odysseus' arrival is presented as an answer to her prayers, which helps explain her actions without excusing them. Not Sorry for Loving You is Calypso's defense of her emotions, a direct challenge to the traditional expectations of women who dare to love deeply, particularly when that love is unrequited or considered improper. In the song, Calypso reclaims her narrative and asserts her agency, repositioning her actions as an offering rather than a trap. The lyrics are a powerful combination of vulnerability and defiance. Calypso admits to her loneliness, revealing that Odysseus is all she's ever known, a moving confession that humanizes her. This, along with the pain of being angry and tired and restless and sad, arises from her deep longing for connection. The musical doesn't shy away from depicting the problematic aspects of Calypso's behavior and trust. They are problematic. She admits that she may have overstepped, saying if I pushed you, or if I came on too strong, or if I ambushed you, for that I'll say I was wrong. Even in this admission, there is defensiveness. Her word choice, pushed, came on too strong, downplays the severity of her actions, which could be interpreted as gaslighting. This complex portrayal shows her flaws while also trying to get empathy from Odysseus. Calypso's journey in Not Sorry for Loving You and the overall story is about the agony of unrequited love. Despite being a goddess and offering Odysseus paradise, her love for him remains unreturned. Her very first person that she has on the island after centuries and centuries and centuries of being alone is someone that does not love her. Even though she has laid so much on the table, she is a goddess to be worshipped. She'll offer sex, she'll offer food, she'll offer shelter, and she's given nothing in return. So understandably, her heartbreak is valid. Her actions showcase her immense capacity for self-sacrifice, which goes beyond the traditional depiction of her character. In the end, she chooses love over control by being forced to let Odysseus go, even though it causes her immense heartbreak. The act of emotional ruthlessness demonstrates that she's capable of putting his needs before her own, even if it means losing him. I think also another reason I love this song so much is because it is sung by the absolutely beautiful Barbara Wangui. Barbara Wangui, as a Black woman, hearing a song about unrequited love being sung by another Black woman hits harder for someone like me. Another great example of this, completely unrelated, and yes, a wicked analysis is coming, is the song I'm Not That Girl. A lot of musical songs about Black women singing about unrequited love just hit so much different. Does that justify Calypso's actions? No, never. Absolutely not. Because why is it the first words that come out of her mouth are, oh, you know, you've been sleeping for a while. You look really tired and sore. You should have sex with me. That's not the way you go about that, Calypso. But I understand her heartbreak. Because again, she's been alone for centuries. Not Sorry for Loving You is a key moment in Epic the Musical's reinterpretation of Calypso, where she reclaims her narrative and expresses the complexities of her love. The musical does not forgive her, and I will not forgive her for her actions, but instead it does provide a deeper understanding of her motivations and her emotional landscape. By acknowledging her vulnerability, pain, and ultimate act of selflessness, even forced on her by the gods and divine intervention, the audience is invited to reconsider a character often demonized and recognize the profound power of love, even in its most painful and unfulfilled forms. While Calypso's experience highlights the pain and sacrifice love can entail, its enduring and resilient nature is also celebrated in the reunion of Odysseus and Telemachus. Odysseus, finally able to rest after killing 107 suitors, because Telemachus killed one of them, is joyfully reunited with his son Telemachus. This reunion is filled with both joy and longing as father and son come together after a very, very long separation. Telemachus' lyrics express the pain of growing up without his father, admitting, "All my life I'd have died to meet you, and I thought about your name so much it hurts." These words capture his deep longing to know his father, a man he only knows through stories. Odysseus, in turn, marvels at Telemachus' growth, singing, "Oh my son, look at how much you've grown," which highlights the bittersweet joy of rediscovering a loved one after so much lost time. Their shared lyrics, "What your world must be if we're like each other," reveal the process of rebuilding a relationship damaged by 20 years of separation. The warmth of their reunion emphasizes the enduring power of familial love to overcome any obstacle, even after 20 years. The meeting between Odysseus and Athena presents a contrasting view of love, one built on respect, shared experiences, and an understanding of individual journeys. Athena contemplates her past actions and the ruthlessness she once believed was essential, singing, "I can't help but wonder what this world would be if we all held each other with a bit more empathy." Her remorse, "I can help but feel like I led you astray," reveals a vulnerability that challenges her previous position. Acknowledging their shared history, Odysseus recognizes that a world of peace and mercy is far beyond my years. His acceptance of their separate paths is not without warmth, but rather a farewell. Their exchange emphasizes that even the deepest forms of love must sometimes acknowledge the constraints of circumstance and the need to move on. The lyrics capture the bittersweet emotions of Odysseus and Telemachus' reunion. While joyful and relieved to be reunited, both characters express sadness over their time lost and admit to wondering about each other's lives. Odysseus' farewell to Athena combines gratitude and respect with the acceptance of their parting, creating a beautiful conclusion. The song explores the complex nature of love, showcasing its ability to both heal and wound, connect and release. Odysseus' journey, marked by profound love and immense suffering, culminates in his reunion with his wife, Penelope. Quite possibly one of the strongest love songs I have ever heard in a musical. After 20 years of trials and tribulations, Odysseus finally returns to his wife in "Would You Fall in Love with Me Again?" But he is no longer the same man who left Ithaca. This song explores Odysseus' uncertainty, Penelope's faithfulness, and the strength in their bond, even through trauma. Odysseus' return home is filled with uncertainty and doubt. The immense suffering and violence he endured to return to Penelope has left him questioning the worthiness of their love, especially with all of the things he has gone through. He wonders if his transformation and trauma has made him unrecognizable to his wife, as reflected in his lyrics, expressing his fear that he no longer is the man she fell in love with. This uncertainty shows a central theme of the song, the transformative power of time and hardship, and the challenge love faces in navigating these changes. Penelope, too, has changed during Odysseus' absence. She's had to raise their son alone, as well as defend their home from the suitors. Upon Odysseus' return, she is cautious, noticing how different he looks and how tired he seems. To test his identity, Penelope asks Odysseus to move their wedding bed, a symbol of their shared history and unique bond. In the original Greek mythology story, she did this and a few other things to really test the suitors who would claim to be Odysseus. Odysseus' anger and frustration confirm his identity to Penelope. This scene emphasizes that their love transcends physical appearances and the passage of time. Penelope recognizes Odysseus' essence, the core of his being, which remains unchanged despite the trials, tribulations, and traumas that he has been through. The olive tree bed, a symbol of enduring love and unbreakable connection, represents the deep roots of Odysseus and Penelope's relationship. It has withstood separation and hardship, a testament to their shared history. Even after 20 years, and Odysseus admitting ruthlessness, Penelope's forgiveness and acceptance shows that love can endure violence and suffering. The king of Ithaca is finally reunited with his loved ones, and the musical comes to an end. I really wish there was more to say about this song. Like, it's so beautiful because you can hear just the emotional weight in his voice as he is begging and pleading. I'm tearing up how he's begging and pleading and telling her, please, I don't feel like I am the same man that you fell in love with 20 years ago. I have changed. And she says, if you are still Odysseus, if you are still that man that is willing to still love me, then you are still that man. I don't care what you have been through. I don't care what you have done. If you are still my husband, I will fall in love with you over and over again, no matter where, how, or when. You are mine. It is such a good song, y'all. I'm actually crying. It's such a good song. Love is not without pain. In epic, it exists with pain, and sometimes because of it. Whether it softens the ruthlessness or drives someone to make impossible choices, love is this emotional center of epic. It's what keeps Odysseus going. It's what makes Circe and Calypso choose mercy. It's what allows Athena to question herself. And it's what finally brings Odysseus home to Telemachus and Penelope. Because in the end, love isn't just what we fight for. It's what makes the fight matter. In Epic the Musical, Jorge Rivera-Herrans reimagined the Odyssey, changing it from a hero's journey to a story of survival. He presents characters not as purely good or evil, but as complex individuals navigating a world that demands ruthless choices. Through the central question, when does ruthlessness become mercy, Jorge unlocks 7 core themes, prompting us to ask 7 questions about the musical's message. Is he telling us we must accept fate, or is he asking us how far we'll defy control? Through dangerous situations, is he showing justifiable compromise or asking what compromises are justifiable? On Odysseus' path to ruthlessness, is he showing what survival demands or just showing us what choices have moral implications? By exploring mercy, is he saying compassion is always good or asking if trust can be destructive? Is he showing how pride shapes us or asking when it destroys us? Or is he revealing when loyalty is true and what choices it demands? And lastly, even during violence, is he showing how love persists and transforms, or asking how it persists and transforms? I think that the most powerful lesson in Epic has nothing to do with the story itself. This musical, this phenomenon, is a testament to the sheer unstoppable force of a single man. It's a passion project born from Jorge's college thesis, and now look at it. Epic continues to grow, to inspire, to evolve. This musical is a reminder that a single idea can turn into something extraordinary. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in front of a camera talking to you, because I have that same passion for what I do and what I love to talk about. So write that book, sing that song, craft that screenplay, whatever your dream, chase it with everything you've got. Don't let anything hold you back. Don't let doubt silence you. Like Jorge, invest in what excites you. Develop your skills, explore your ideas, and believe in your potential, because you never know what incredible things that talent might grow into. And that, my friends, is the true epic lesson that can be learned from this musical. It's a reminder that as I continue on this path, exploring and analyzing different musicals and movies, that I want to share more of my perspective outside of just analysis. So, starting today, here is my personal ranking of every single song in the Epic the Musical, going from my least favorite to the absolute best, in my opinion. We have Survive, We'll Be Fine, Little Wolf, Mutiny, Different Beasts, Polyphemus, Remember Them, Warrior of the Mind, Done For, There Are Other Ways, Puppeteer, My Goodbye, Legendary, Wouldn't You Like, 600 Strike, Monster, Charybdis, The Horse and the Infant, Open Arms, Keep Your Friends Close, Love in Paradise, Not Sorry for Loving You, Just a Man, Ruthlessness, Scylla, Luck Runs Out, Suffering, God Games, Full Speed Ahead, Dangerous, I Can't Help But Wonder, Storm, Thunderbringer, Odysseus, The Underworld, Get in the Water, No Longer You, Hold Them Down, The Challenge, and the song that made me cry just going over the analysis, Would You Fall in Love with Me Again? Of course, that's just my take. I'd love to know if you agree or disagree. What are your favorite songs from Epic? And with that, that's all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, please like this video. This has been my most ambitious project yet. There was a lot of trial and error just in filming this. I have been filming and working on this on and off, just recording this for about 5 hours, and this video had an 80-page script that I worked on for 3 weeks. I've never worked on anything this big before, and I'm so glad not only to be done with it, but to have created something about a musical that I've completely fallen in love with and would fall in love with over and over and over again. So, thank you, Jorge. You've made something incredible, and I can't wait to see you continue your journey. I also hope that you'll continue to follow mine. So please subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated. I've been sucked into Epic for the past month, so I have no idea what I'm going to do next when this video is published. But if you have any ideas or anything that I should talk about, please let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. But overall, thank you guys so much for watching and being here this far. This is going to be a very long video and a very big project. But again, it is something that I loved making, I loved learning from, and I loved working on. Even though it was a challenge, your support means so much to me. Being able to put out content for you guys means so much to me. And I will see you guys all on the next take. Bye-bye!